No. All right, we have our first intake design here. This is using top rollers and a backing plate to intake it in a horizontal configuration. Here we have it pivoted so we can get it back up into frame perimeter and then transferring it into a ramp transfer to then shoot with whatever shooter mechanism we have from on the other side of the robot. This would be deployed over the bumper, but wouldn't actually use the bumper for contact.
We're using the flexibility of what we think the ring is going to be to get around and into the robot without going over a foot extension.
The thought is entraption stars will probably be very handy as a first contact, as well as kind of in a horizontal configuration as a transfer point between the intake and the ramp, which could potentially allow for a full robot with intake to funnel down to just the ramp for the shooter.
Ramp, so it just basically alters the trajectory of the node after it leaves the launcher, and then it can just retract back into more concealed position so it doesn't interrupt when we're trying to launch for the speaker. The other method we had was the pivot method. So basically this entire section where the flywheel is basically can pivot to a different position so that we can feed directly into the to the amp, and then it can just go back to the original position when we need to go back to launch for the speaker. Then we have.
So here we have another kind of shooter idea, going back to the first kind of thing we covered. This one's fairly simple. We're still kind of looking at the geometry a little bit, but the idea here is that we have some kind of polycord or other feeder system, maybe stealth wheels or something like, that feeds the actual note, I guess, from here into the flywheel. We can see that it's actually open here, so it could shoot for the high goal if we want to. But what this is doing is, if we can vary the speed of the wheels or the flywheel itself, we can feed it slowly into the amplifier. The idea here is that it hits the back, squeezes up, and falls down. We have this bracket here to prevent it from falling backwards onto our robot in some kind of way. A bit more work on that has to be done, but I mean, those are our three big ideas so far.
I'm gonna assume that's a yes. All right.
Okay, so it's the flip uptake design. So you bring it in at the front here, then you flip it up, and you put it in the shooter. And you shoot it in the goal. Alternatively, you can flip it up and put it in the amp.
Yeah.
Any questions? There's 1 degree of freedom and 3 motors on this robot. Like it's not complex. What's up, Kyler?
So the shooter is a separate thing, or
The shooter just kind of sits there. I didn't model any structure for it.
So how is it grabbing?
It's a roller on top that grabs. Right. That we're looking at the side. Yeah. So it's a roller on the top for intake. And then it flips it up into the configuration to shoot into the speaker, or a different position in order to kind of drop it into the amp, essentially. So, right, so to get it into the shooter, you would run the motor the reverse direction that you use to intake, and that would feed it into a flywheel shooter. And then to put it in the amp, you would run it, continue to run it in the same direction that you ran it to intake, and it would kind of drop it out the back. That rectangle here represents the opening for the amp. And then the orange one up top represents the speaker, and the other orange block represents a 4-foot tall blocker bot that we can shoot over.
Is that horizontal distance accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
That's if you run your bumpers up against the wall. Shoots in.
up against the defender
The
bot
sub
and.
subwoofer.
No, if there is not a defender bot there, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying, that's for.
Then the only question I have is in terms of indexing that, like, since they're so squishy, like, this would mean that we have it in relatively a similar spot every time we intake it? Are we planning to like suck it up against the bumper, like as the bumper a backing plate?
Yeah, you could just use the bumper as a
Well, you use a
backing
bumper, the
plate.
backing plate, you could put like standoffs on either side that would center the disc in the intake itself. There's a few ways to do it.
What's up?
Is it the entire length of the
Yes.
spot? Does it center then for the shooting part, like the up high shooting?
It would.